Good morning, everybody. A beautiful time to be an American, is it not? Is it not? Now, Pete Hegseth made some comments about women in the military. I feel like I should clarify this because, first of all, he didn't say that they're ineffective. He said that women and men mixed together in a fighting situation makes things complicated. Now, to my ears, the very first thing I thought of was, yeah, if I'm at war and there is an attractive woman next to me, especially a strong one who can fight, that might make things complicated. Read between the lines. He's not talking about like a fighting thing. He is talking about human nature. He's talking about the fact that instead of focusing on the enemy, you're going to be focusing on the ass. That's what he's talking about. That's complicated. Okay, that's just number one. Number two, we are now finally coming back to biology, where in biology we can clearly see that men and women are different. Now, as I've said in one of my previous videos, you can go check the receipts, I feel that women are superior to men in a lot of areas. But in terms of bone density, lung capacity, muscle strength, we got you beat. I'm sorry. We were made this way. I didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this. This is what we get. You get the cards that you're dealt. So, women in the military, here's how this happened. Let me explain the evolution of this to you. Women in World War II played the vital role of writing letters for these generals and leaders and whoever else was on the battlefield, and they couldn't write a letter for every single man they lost. And believe me, every man they lost, they felt it. So they had women back home typing these letters, penning these letters as if they were the commanders of these units and sending them to the thing. And they also had the information, and these women would do their homework and they'd figure out what the person did in the unit, what his job was, and then make a personalized letter to send to the people, along with I think it was called the bereavement department or something like that. They had a whole department, and they would send out priests and chaplains and women out to these families of who lost men overseas to tell them about it and comfort them. That was, without that, I don't know that we would have won that war. I don't think morale would have lasted through to the end. That was a brutal war, and I don't know any women today that want to go fight a campaign like that. And first of all, nobody fights campaigns like that anymore. So fast forward to today. We're looking at Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle Eastern conflicts, which have been the most recent in terms of like what we fought boots on the ground, soldiers wise. And even then, it's not hand-to-hand combat typically. Yes, there are some instances where it's like, you have a battle and you have to go door to door. You have to fight soldiers as close face-to-face as we are now, as I am to the phone. But most times it's range attacks. Most times it's missiles and stuff like that. It's not, you're not looking at the guy in the eye. I don't know what's better or what's worse. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, so these women in the modern day army, their jobs became a transportation liaison or equipment management, something like that, where they had to travel with the platoons and with everything else around these war zones. And maybe they're driving a truck, or maybe they're operating a computer in one of the Humvees that controls one of the defense systems, and then they come under attack, right? Which happened all the time. They would attack military convoys. They would even attack civilians. They'd attack everybody. So now you have women in a combat situation that they didn't actually sign up for. They didn't actually want to be in this combat situation. They just wanted to be an army engineer, or they just wanted to be a driver for the soldiers and maybe help out getting some wounded ones out to the medics. And then they became in this combat thing. Now, as Secretary Hegseth said, there are definitely exceptions. Like, all right, if you got a Ronda Rousey, who, if you know who Ronda Rousey is, 1 in a million. There are not many women out there that, I don't care how trained you are. I look at the WNBA today. I look at the UFC, the female UFC today. There is nobody I'd be afraid to step on the court with or in the ring with. Female. But then you look at John Jones. Like, oh my God. If he was in a fighting mood, I wouldn't want to be in the same room as that dude. He is lethal. I would take one John Jones over the entire women's UFC. And I still think John Jones would win. And they don't even need to wear gloves. In fact, John Jones could do it one hand behind his back. Like, that's how ridiculously different men and women are. You look at a trained man. John Jones he's the GOAT of fighters. He's the Michael Jackson of fighters. This guy is undefeated, heavyweight champion of the UFC. Basically the Muhammad Ali of our day. He's unbelievable, actually. I recommend going to watch some John Jones fights if you haven't. Anyway, this has gone on way too long. The point I'm trying to make here is quit getting offended about the way people say things and understand what he's saying. Yeah, it's a distraction for soldiers when they have women in their platoon. Now we're thinking about sex and we're thinking about how we look and we're thinking about, is my love handle hanging out this uniform? And I'm just spitballing here, but I'm saying men act differently around women. We just do. Everything we do is for women. The clothes we pick. The reason we work out is so that we look good for women. So if you apply that to the Army, it's actually not a good thing. Because sometimes in the Army, you got to do shit that you wouldn't want anybody to see. Right? I mean, my God. You're out on maneuvers for 4 or 5 days. You got to go use the bathroom in a place that isn't necessarily a bathroom. Maybe it's nothing at all. Maybe it's just in the middle of the desert. You got health things that go on. You don't get to shower maybe once every month. A real shower, not the powdered stuff. A real actual shower. They don't get to do that in the morning like we do. And then, so think about that. You're smelling your funk. And this gorgeous woman walks in to your barracks. That's gonna fuck you up, man. It would mess me up too. Because now I'm like, man, I gotta figure out a way to get this funky smell out of me. Like, this chick is cute. Like, I don't want her thinking I'm like a weird, smelly dude. You know what I'm saying? So that is the complication. If it's all dudes, believe me, nobody cares. Everybody's like, man, what is that smell? Is that me? Is that you? Is that all of us? It's like fucking 10 ball sacks in here. Like, it's a guy's locker room. Ask any cheerleader. You don't want to go in a guy's locker room after a football game. Which is basically, I would imagine, the equivalent of like the amount of sweat and shit that you get underneath all that gear. It's gross. It's gross. It's gross. Unless you're playing, it's gross. And last point I'll make here, just in the upbringing. Anybody who, God rest his soul, knew my best friend, knew a lot of my best friends, God rest all their souls. And what we used to do for fun, we'd go in the backyard and just beat the shit out of each other. For no apparent reason. And this is us. We weren't angry. We weren't like, we need to go blow off some steam. Like, no, let's do this for fun. Let's throw the gloves on and see who can take a punch from Frank Barkle and not fall. Like, that was what we did on a Tuesday night in the backyard while girls play with Barbies. So understand the fundamental differences and the biological differences, the physiological differences between a man and a woman. And it might not be so hard to understand what he means when he says it's complicated. So, it's complicated. All right, Ronda Rousey, you want to fight in the military? I'm behind that. Anybody else? Sorry. Unless you can beat me in a fight, I don't think you belong in the military because I am not a military guy. I train at a boxing gym. I don't fight people. Like, you should be able to take me out no problem. Just like any soldier, any Navy SEAL, any Army Ranger, anybody who's trained could likely dispatch me very easily. Unless they're a woman. How are you going to manage me? I'm 6'1", 180. What are you going to do? Unless you're Ronda Rousey, in which case you kick my ass. And I'd probably enjoy it because she's really hot. But I digress. This has gone on too long. It's been a 10-minute video. If you made it this long, congratulations. You are one of the ones with a long attention span. And if I had my page to that point, I would give you a prize. I really would. But your prize is this. You are more intelligent than the rest of the people on TikTok if you've made it to the end of this video. Congratulations. I love you. I love all of you. God bless America.